Welcome to Generations, a show which helps people 50 and better lead happy, healthy, and productive lives. Moderating today's episode is Nadia Giordana.
Welcome to the show. I'm Nadia Giordana, and co-hosting with me today is Ed Noreen. Welcome, Ed. And Diane Winkler.
Hi, I'm just excited about today. I know I'm going to learn a lot.
Yes, we have two nutritionists with us today, in fact, registered dietitians. Val Shonberg. Welcome, Val.
Thank you. It's such a privilege to be here.
It's good to have you here. And Kim Fox. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Let's maybe start things off by starting with Kim. Tell us a little bit about what you do, just a minute or two about what you do in your field, and then Val will have you follow, and then we'll have our discussion.
Wonderful. I've been a registered dietitian for over 25 years, and currently my passion is working in integrative and functional medical nutrition therapy. And the premise of that is helping people to get to what the core root symptom problem, what their symptoms are, so we can find out how to alleviate those signs, those symptoms, those diseases, disorders with good nutrition. So kind of a food first versus resorting to medications right away. So that's what I'm currently working with.
And Val?
Yes, I'm a registered dietitian as well. I'm also a sports nutritionist, and I'm also a certified menopause practitioner. Specifically enjoy specializing and working with women who are going through that menopause transition and beyond. My background is working in eating disorder treatment, and because of that, it's really shaped a lot of the philosophy that I bring into my practice in providing honest and evidence-based and unbiased information so that the individuals I work with can really make informed decisions about their health.
Wow. I have a daughter-in-law that has had eating disorder, and I didn't know very much about exactly how this all magnified so big, but it scared me to pieces because that is a horribly sad, hard situation, and it does affect the whole family.
Young and old alike.
Yep.
Well, and we're talking about seniors and people over 50 and diet and nutrition and all the things that encompass that. One of the things that came to my mind, was it you, Val, that mentioned that television program, 90 Plus study? I read that and I watched the 60 Minutes episode with my mouth open. There were several things in there that I never knew before. Talk a little bit about that study and seniors.
Sure, I agree. I found it so fascinating, just the research that they were doing, and that they had this huge resource of individuals that they could study in terms of what their trends were from about the age of 50 until living past 90, and what are those behaviors, the things they do with food and eating and activity that truly seem to make a difference in being able to not only live longer, but add life to their years, so that you could see the difference in how they reported about that and what they're studying in terms of who is more prone to dementia and who is, still driving around and walking, 3 miles a day when they're 90 plus years old.
Yeah, and I noticed, one of the things I noticed, they were talking about blood pressure and strokes being caused by low blood pressure, and actually with a little bit elevated blood pressure when you're older isn't as scary a thing as it would be compared to having low, and even being just a little bit overweight, which is like, oh, okay, that's great. I don't have to worry so much. I don't have to starve myself to be healthy as an older person. It's okay to have a few extra pounds. That doesn't mean to be obese. Did I interpret that?
You're exactly right, and especially the weight piece, because that's really where I think as dietitians, a lot of times people come in our door wanting to work on their weight, and then we can work on some of these other factors that maybe are part of their total health condition. But I've also seen that with midlife women as they're going, past menopause and they're struggling with that little extra weight. And we have research even beyond, say, what the 90 Plus study has done that demonstrates that the risk of mortality decreases when you have a little bit extra. So potentially we do store some extra as a protective mechanism.
Right.
Of course, too much is not healthy, we know that, but it's really, the individual who's maybe gained 10 pounds since they were 25 years old, that may be protective.
My goodness. Everybody is so different
Yes.
as far as their outlooks on how much they think they should weigh, how much they think they should have as desserts, all the things that just not any really one thing applies to that person.
Absolutely, and that's what I have found with in my practice with the integrative and nutrition, is that you really have to look at every single person individually. And some of the issues that I see is that we're trying to give everybody the same recommendations, get everybody to follow in, everybody should be eating this and doing this and doing this. And when it comes down to individual differences based on your likes, your preferences, your genetics, your laboratory makeups, that's what's going to give us clues as to what is going to work for you, what's going to work for you and you, and so forth. So really trying to work on these individual preferences.
That's so difficult when you're working with so many different. And do they say to you, this is what I like, or do they say, no, I don't care for that?
Actually both.
Both.
So it'll
Okay.
be both things, but I want to know initially where are people coming from? Because
Okay.
people will tell you, I'm willing to do this,
Okay.
I'm not willing to do this,
Okay.
or, depending on where their health parameters are, if they're ready to take things really seriously or want to make changes, they are willing to do some of the hardcore things that maybe they need to do to get their life and their health back in order.
Right. When my husband was with me not too long ago, we walked every day, other than rainy days. But we did our walk, and it was the best thing for both of us, because we would talk, we would just have, we have great neighbors, and boy, can they cook. And it's just the idea that I learned so much by taking him with me, and it was great. It was absolutely great. And now I walk by myself, and then I can walk fast or slow, depending upon how I feel.
Can I say something about the culture? I used to teach acting, and females in particular have a real problem with self-esteem. The way they compare themselves, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
A lot of cultures, being heavy is not a bad thing. In this culture, it is. And so eating disorders is a crisis for females. Men will drink themselves to death,
Yep.
but females have permission to eat. So it's the eating, binge and starving, etc. And also, food has changed. We used to have healthy farms.
Yes.
Corporations have made food in this country horrible. They put steroids in animals. Our insecticides are poisoning our vegetables. And so we have an obesity issue and a diabetes crisis that we've never seen in this country. If nothing else, you are going to be really busy if you're not already.
Yes. And can I respond to
Yes,
that?
please.
Especially related to the eating disorders. Actually, I just saw some research about the rise in eating disorders among men
Oh.
and boys.
Oh, now
And
that's- I didn't
it's
expect
sadly undiagnosed.
And does it carry into seniors?
Yes, I worked with individuals who were as much as 70 years old and beyond, who were struggling with an eating disorder, sometimes triggered by, they started with bariatric surgery, and the underlying cause was never addressed. And so then they cycle back through emotional eating and really that body image issue. And so the reasons we choose to eat are so complicated. We want to keep it simple, and that's really Kim and my job, is to help the people we work with keep eating basic and simple. When it gets too complicated, it's not fun anymore. But in terms of the eating disorders, I do see more and more men, and young men especially, really struggling with that, and then they're not getting help. And the sooner you can have an intervention when someone is struggling with whether it's under eating or restrictive eating or overeating or binge eating, the easier it is to have some success with recovery.
And what about diabetes? You know, you're a bit of an expert on diabetes, Kim. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay, yes, and you're absolutely right. It is in epidemic proportions. I'm a certified diabetes educator, and actually the point that, Ed, you had made with a lot of the chemicals and the pesticides and a lot of these things, we are seeing more and more research to show that, yeah, it's these things that are getting into our bodies, into our systems, and they're just staying there, and after, you know, about midlife, it seems like everything seems to go haywire, and that's when we start seeing the blood glucose levels going up, because most of my people, majority, are between 45 and 65. And why did everything go out of whack all of a sudden? The weight gain and the blood cholesterol and the hypertension, and you know, much of it is felt to be related to inflammation, and a lot of it from our environmental sources or what we've been exposed to.
Yeah.
So, absolutely agree.
And my experience with that too has been sometimes people hear some of those messages and then get very afraid of eating. That can be, you know, cause them to be a little bit predisposed to some. They can't do it right, and so they don't even try. And an interesting report that just came out where they study food trends. Over 80% of Americans do not get in 5 a day of fruits and vegetables. So as much as we want to say that there's the pesticides and the inflammation and all of this, we're so focused on what not to eat. And I really try to help people focus on, here are all the things you can eat and that you need to be eating. So let's plan around including more fruits and vegetables in your meals and snacks. Let's focus on lean sources of protein. And what does that mean in terms of your preferences or your lifestyle and how that might fit in? So really equipping people with ideas so they can have fun with food again, because kind of that message can start to be like, I don't know what to eat anymore because, you know, there's something wrong with my food supply. We just had a report come out that a popular supplement company is now potentially contaminated with staph and salmonella. And so there's not a perfect solution out there. We just have to do the best we can.
I have 3 daughters that cannot eat hardly anything because they are allergic. And what's the word? I can't even pull the word out.
What, gluten? Or
Gluten. Yeah,
the celiac?
everything they have to have is gluten-free. You should figure out what I have for Christmas and Easter. Go.
But the thing too, even that, we're looking at how can we make that even more simplified. So the more to nature that you can keep your foods to.
The best.
So, you know, still eating your fruits and vegetables, but go more for your organic products. And trying to avoid a lot of the sauces. If you were making something where you serve that on the side, so then they can still put that on, the people that maybe don't have those allergies. But your proteins that you can have, there's things like your potatoes, your sweet potatoes, all those things are still going to be gluten-free. So it's just primarily avoiding a lot of those, your wheat, your barley, your rye, those types of things.
I
But there's
noticed
a lot
in
of
the
other things.
stores that the area of gluten-free foods and everything has expanded unbelievably.
Yes.
It just dawned on me, the turning point of our culture was the TV dinner. Ed Sullivan's on, put the TV dinner and we're ready. Get into the.
I remember those days.
Good old Saturday
we all
night,
remember
good old
those days.
Swanson.
And
It was a treat back then. McDonald's was a big treat.
Yes,
It
still
was,
is.
Yeah.
It was.
And that's a really important point, because I will often see, for even younger people, where they'll go to, a coffee shop and get basically those smoothies that are basically a caffeinated milkshake and think of it as a snack instead of, we grew up like going and maybe getting a milkshake at the ice cream shop, but it was dessert and it was a treat.
Right.
And so it's really the frequency and the overconsumption of some of these foods that potentially builds and becomes a spillover in the body, and then it's not helpful.
Look at soda pop.
Yeah.
Having a soda pop as a child was a big deal.
Yes.
Now they're drinking a 6-pack a day.
Yes, yeah. So.
Yeah, I find it interesting. I have a mother who's 89, and we grew up on the farm. and never had soda pop ever. And it surprised me. And then she spent almost 30 years living in Alaska, another place in her later years that they didn't have easy access to those kinds of foods. And yet in recent years, she drinks soda pop every day, and it surprised me. I'm working on encouraging her to drop that habit because I don't think it's the greatest habit to have because of the sugar and things like that in it. It surprised me that never having had that she picked that up in her senior years.
Yeah,
Very surprised.
interesting.
Yeah.
You know, and we know that sugar too causes cravings. It's not healthy for our gut bacteria, which can cause other problems, and so be an independent risk factor for heart disease. So that's one thing, but the pop intake is a huge epidemic.
But you know, a reason that drives people is their emotional life. And when you're
Absolutely.
unhappy, when you're depressed, when you're tired, sugar, caffeine, and fat are antidepressants.
Absolutely.
It's an instant antidepressant. And so a lot of people are dealing with their emotional loneliness, unhappiness, frustration. And I think a lot of Americans today are afraid and they feel isolated and alone. I think in the 50s and 60s, we knew our neighbors, we didn't lock our doors, we were closer people.
It really is, you know, kind of the fat, salt, and sugar that's in our toxic food environment that lights up these places in the brain that really make people feel good. And so as we continue to age, beyond the age of 50, things are happening, right? I'm now an empty nester. For some people that can bring on stress, that can be some loneliness. Potentially they have a job promotion, which is more stress, and they're not moving around as much. And then those types of food become the go-to instead of taking time to prepare those family meals that maybe they used to do. So really staying on track with simple, convenient ways to cook ahead, have things easily accessible so that we really are not using food to soothe and comfort those emotions. But we find non-food ways to do that.
I would like to know if this is a fact, that when you get older, that your taster, as they call it, changes. Your likes and dislikes of foods changes. Is that a fact or a guess?
You know, there is some validity to that. However, much of the things that I've also seen can be related to a lot of the medications that our older adults are taking. And so things like changes in taste or smell can actually even be a cause of underlying zinc deficiency. So that could be something that maybe have checked out by a lab, or increasing intake oysters and meats and some of your nuts and seeds. But it could be something just as simple as I'm not getting in those types of foods as much of those anymore, and that's affecting my taste and smell, and things aren't tasting good, my food choices are going to change.
Because years ago you had a special hot dish or a special that you just loved. Now you want no part of it. It just doesn't taste good.
Well, we're going to change gears here for a minute or two, or till the end of the program. I have a surprise question. I don't know what's in here. Ed doesn't know what's in here. Diane doesn't know, and you two don't know, but you're to join us in discussing of whatever the topic is.
This is like a lead into Johnny Carson. You give the answer before you know the question.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Yeah.
Okay, the question is, a good rule of thumb to follow when it comes to one's diet. And when you give your opinions of this, tell us also why you feel the way you do. Is moderation in all things. But how well does this rule apply to all things? What, if any, are the things in life for which one should employ intensity or even extremism? Provide examples and tell us why. Oh, that's let's revisit that. Moderation in all things. And when should one employ intensity or even extremism? Okay.
Wow, that's
Yes,
dynamite.
please.
Last time I experienced this, I was tired and I went to the freezer and I had Butterfinger ice cream in the freezer. So I take it out and it's no such, you start and you go, I should stop. Yeah, one more. Well, I might as well finish now. And then afterwards you go, whoa. So I don't know what, I threw out a little bit.
I would say that would not be moderation, correct?
No, I don't know.
But you
But that's
can give
okay
yourself
once in
a
a
treat.
while. Once in a while,
Within.
if you know that.
Yeah, you can give yourself a treat,
Yes.
in moderation, if you can do that. But in your case, I'd really be scared.
It's the reason why I'm in 12-step groups. Don't know moderation.
I tend to be one of those people who focuses on moderation in virtually all things. It's second nature to me, so it would be hard for me to get extreme on one end or another with things. But what about you two, being
Yeah.
registered dietitians? Does it affect how you live your lives?
I would say for me, or I used to really believe everything in moderation. And then I started thinking about things. Well, if you're a person, we'll take your daughters, for example, that had the celiac disease, you can't be doing those grains to avoid in moderation. You really, the guidelines are saying not having more than a crumb of gluten a day.
Right.
So that would be an example where I really think people need to try to stay healthy and to keep
Right.
everything
Where
working
an health
properly.
issue comes into
Yeah.
play, sure.
Is where one of those extremes are going to come in. And the people that are kind of dabbling in that moderation or going, they're the ones that are going to have the problems. So I believe that, for most individuals, the problem I see is that we don't have a specific, what is the rule? What is the measurement of moderation? So what your moderation might be totally different than what
sure.
mine might be. Somebody
Sure.
might think, a king-size candy bar every day. I used to have 2, but 1 is moderation. For me, I would maybe have a small piece of chocolate once or twice a week. So I see that maybe that's some of the issues. I mean, in my opinion, because
Yeah.
there isn't an exact definition.
No.
I think
not.
Kim nailed it in terms of it, moderation is important, but it also can change for the individual. So what you could tolerate, what you could handle when you were younger potentially changes as we continue to get older for a whole bunch of reasons. It also depends on the person's personality. Some people are perfectionists, some people are rules followers. That helps them stay in line. And so moderate restraint, they need kind of those guidelines, or what I always like to call loving limits, to kind of keep them in place. I had a problem a long time ago with really excessive compulsive exercise, and it's really easy in this culture to normalize it because exercise is a good thing, but at some point it got not helpful, right? It became very disruptive to my life and interfered with other social things, and had to kind of go the other way, which was no exercise for a while, until I could get that pendulum back in the middle where exercise could be a healthy thing that I enjoyed again.
I can relate to that one about the exercise, because for a period of years I exercised as a younger person regularly, then I didn't for a period of years. Then as a senior, over 50, brought that back into my life, tried for a period of time to equal that level of fitness when I was 35. You can't do that. That would be excessive. So now I've moderated it.
Right. And again, it depends. I had a lovely interview yesterday with a 92-year-old gentleman who has done over 100 triathlons in the last 25 years. So he's figured out moderation. That might not be my moderation or any of ours, but for him, he thrives, he fuels himself well, and it was just such a fun interview to see how he was able to do that, and was very bright and energetic man.
Not stressful for them.
No,
at
no,
all.
it was something that he enjoyed and had a great camaraderie of folks that in that community that he exercises with.
I exercise every morning.
I think what we've hit on the point of balance. That life is about balance and being balanced, and balance is individual. And also, in Facebook, there was a woman, a 97-year-old woman, who's a yoga teacher. She said it's
Seen
not
her.
about chronological age, it's about energy.
Yes.
It's your energy level, that's your life. And that's who you really are. Our bodies are temporary. And so, again, what we've all talked about tonight is listening to yourself, being one with your body, balance.
That is fantastic. And on that note, thank you, ladies, for being here today, and Diane and
Take
Ed.
us out to dinner.
Okay.
That would be
Would love
fun.
to. We love food.
And we'll see you
Yes.
next time.
As gardeners well know, there are any number of products that garden centers want to sell us to help photosynthesis occur in our yard. One wonders how plants survived the past 750 million years without us. In addition to a wide variety of tools, these include fertilizers, compost, potting soil, mulch, and peat moss. There's root stimulator, seed germinator, and soil activator. Among the fertilizers, there are the big three: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Although phosphorus has fallen into disfavor since its runoff is clogging our ponds and lakes with algae. Hey, it's pea soup. Sharon? This has caused many fertilizer formulas to change from familiar numbers like 10-10-10 to ones such as 20-0-10. For those who do want their phosphorus, there's rock phosphate, superphosphate, and even triple superphosphate. Then there are sodium nitrate, ammonium sulfate, ammonium salts, ammonium sulfate nitrate, and ammonium chloride. Then there's bone meal, blood meal, fish meal, and yes, even earthworm castings. And to round out this particular partial list, there's muriate of potash, sulfate of potash, and fertilizers specially formulated for individual plant species. Now, despite all these products sold to us to make our gardens look beautiful and taste delicious, the hardest thing of all about gardening is getting plants not to grow.